So if we're over the phone, we pitch who we have on the phone. So the way I operate is there's no callbacks in this business. If you try to call back with the husband present, it's very unlikely that you'll get in front of them. Okay. So you really want to sell whoever you're talking to. And yes, you don't have the other spouse, but it's just hard because a lot of people just won't ever pick up the phone again. They'll say they'll do it, but they won't. And you can test it if you'd like, but it almost never works out. So you just kind of have to pitch what you got. So what JR did here was right. If I'm selling in person, Susan, I want to go back. This is the difference or discrepancy in telesales versus face-to-face. I will go back when both are there. Okay. So when we're booking that appointment over the phone, we say, okay, just to make sure is this for you or for your spouse as well? Even if we don't know they got a spouse, but we assume it because it doesn't sound as creepy as saying, hey, is your husband going to be there? Like, don't do that. Especially if you're a male or a female. I don't know. It's all weird. Just don't say it like that. Just say, is this for you or your spouse as well? And they'll say either, I don't have a spouse, he's dead, or yeah, it's for both of us. Then if they say for both of us, then you confirm, okay, so just to make sure, since this is both of you are going to want the information, should I come by at 2:00 or 6 later when maybe both y'all will be there better? So you just go back to rebooking it in person to make sure, and it doesn't come off as like weird or creepy when you say it that way. We had a call that Joe Bush did, and he did this whole she agreed the appointment, gave the address, and then he was like, "So is your husband going to be there?" And she's like, "Well, no, he's not." And he said, "Okay, well, I need both y'all to be there." So and it just sounded weird, and she totally withdrew and said no to it. And it came because of how he said that. Okay. So you gotta be very sensitive to that. If they are both there, like on a phone call, then I would say, great, put it on speakerphone so I can talk to both of y'all and give you the information at the same time. I'll wait for you to grab them. If they're both there, then you sit down with both of them. If they're out, like if he's out in the back tinkering in the workshop, I would tell him, so why don't you go grab your husband so both y'all can listen? I'll wait. It's almost the same thing. What I found in most situations is that your prospect will, the husband and wife will both be there. Spouse and spouse will always be there at the same time. It's very rare that they won't be, but you need both of them to be there. If they won't be there, or if they're out in the back and they're busy, or say, hey, I need to come back later then because I'm required to talk to both of y'all at the same time. So you do it at the same time. So when you're asking the health questions, the why, all the script, it's just you're kind of going back and forth between both of them. Both of them will kind of talk about, yeah, we're concerned about this. One thing you want to do, and this is more of a you want to engage both spouses. Men don't talk to just the men. That's very disrespectful. The woman buys this stuff anyway 80% of the time. She's the person you need to convince, but you need to talk and engage both of them, right? So what were your thoughts and concerns, Mr. Jones, when you sent this back? Blah, 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 blah. What about you, Mrs. Jones? What do you think about this? Get some conversation going. If anything, just to have them conversate between each other so they can put their two heads together to agree on something, right? So, but when you're asking a health question, Susan, you're just asking it simultaneously. So do you have COPD, Mr. Jones, Mrs. Jones? You're just going back and forth down the list. Dude, sometimes you're the pigeon, sometimes you're the statue. And the only reason I got out of this is because I put massive activity and effort in. And that's how you get yourself out of these holes. But sometimes that happens to you in the beginning. You aren't going to necessarily get traction immediately. We want you to. We think you should. But sometimes you just have ups and downs with this business. It's just a reality. Even the best agents do. And sometimes the numbers just don't work out, but you're doing things right. But if you keep the influx of leads high, and you keep the activity high along with it, things work out. That's kind of what I try to preach here. The best way out of a rut is the best problem to have, to make the best problem, or to put yourself in a position to have the best problem, which is too many people to see. That's how you overcome a lot of these problems. If you're working full time and doing direct mail and you only get like 15 leads and you're complaining to me that you didn't make 5 or 6 sales, well, that's because you don't have the numbers on your side. That's just next to impossible. So you want to have the volume of leads up front. The other thing you want to do, of course, is track your activity so that you know exactly what the real problem is. If you don't, then, it's going to be frustrating because you just don't know. You're ignorant. And I say that in a respectful way. When you're ignorant of what's causing the problem, Is it the activity? Is this or that? You may start to point to the leads as being the problem. Maybe it's you or the problem. And I say that with all due respect. You're not doing enough. You're not buying enough. You're not optimizing enough. And that's important.